Marcus had been my business partner for 10 years. What he revealed at our company anniversary party destroyed everything we had built together in one sentence. The champagne was flowing, the music was perfect, and everyone looked genuinely happy to be there. I remember standing by the window in our downtown office space, watching the city lights twinkle below, feeling this overwhelming sense of pride. 10 years. 10 whole years since Marcus and I had started this crazy journey together in my cramped studio apartment, surviving on ramen noodles and pure determination. We'd invited everyone, our entire team of 35 employees, key investors, some clients who'd become friends over the years, even a few family members. The catering was perfect, the decorations were elegant but not too flashy, and I'd spent weeks making sure every detail was just right. This wasn't just a party to me. It was proof that two kids from middle-class families could actually make something of themselves. Marcus looked nervous all evening, which wasn't like him at all. He kept checking his phone, stepping outside for mysterious calls, and barely touched his food. When I asked if everything was okay, he just gave me this tight smile and said he had something important to share later. I figured maybe he was planning some kind of surprise speech, or maybe he'd finally decided to propose to his girlfriend. The evening was winding down when Marcus suddenly stood up, tapping his champagne flute with a fork. The room fell quiet, faces turning toward him with expectant smiles. I felt my heart swell with anticipation, thinking he was about to give some heartfelt speech about our journey together. Instead, the words that came out of his mouth were like ice water hitting my face. He announced that he had been embezzling money for years and that our company was actually bankrupt. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched the color drain from every face in the room, saw investors exchange panicked glances, heard someone's glass shatter on the floor. My legs went weak. The room started spinning. Everything we'd worked for, every late night, every sacrifice, every dream we'd built together, it all crumbled in that moment. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to process what I'd just heard. Employees started whispering frantically among themselves. Some of the investors were already pulling out their phones, probably calling their lawyers. Marcus continued talking, his voice steady but his hands shaking. He apologized, said he was turning himself in, that he couldn't live with the guilt anymore. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand answers, but my voice was completely gone. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe properly. As security moved in to escort him out, when had security even arrived? Everything felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. The party guests were filing out quickly, avoiding eye contact with me. Some employees were crying. I stood there frozen, unable to move or speak or think clearly. But then, as Marcus passed by me, he leaned in close and whispered something that made my blood run cold and my heart race at the same time. He told me it was all a lie. Every word he just said was completely fabricated. He discovered that our accountant was the real embezzler, and this whole dramatic confession was an elaborate sting operation he'd been working on with federal agents to catch the guy red-handed. My mind reeled. The accountant had apparently been arrested outside just moments ago. Marcus squeezed my arm gently before security led him away, and I caught a glimpse of something in his eyes that looked almost like relief mixed with exhaustion. I spent the rest of that night sitting alone in our empty office, surrounded by abandoned champagne glasses and crumpled napkins, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My phone was buzzing nonstop with calls and messages from employees, investors, and reporters who'd somehow already gotten wind of the story. I turned it off and just sat there in the dark, feeling completely overwhelmed. Update 1. The next few days were absolutely brutal. I had to call an emergency company meeting to explain the situation, but I couldn't reveal the truth about the sting operation because the investigation was still ongoing. So I had to sit there while my employees looked at me with suspicion and disappointment, wondering if I'd known about Marcus's supposed crimes all along. 3 of our biggest clients immediately terminated their contracts. 2 key employees quit on the spot, saying they couldn't work for a company with such instability. Our stock price, we'd gone public just 2 years earlier, plummeted by 60% in a single day. The media was having a field day, painting us as another corporate scandal waiting to explode. I barely slept for a week. Every morning I'd wake up hoping it was all just a nightmare, but then reality would crash back down. I'd built my entire adult life around this company, and watching it crumble based on what I knew was a lie was torture. The worst part was not being able to defend Marcus publicly. I had to let everyone believe he was a criminal while knowing he'd actually sacrificed everything to expose the real thief. The federal agents had made it clear that any leak about the ongoing investigation could compromise their case and let the accountant's potential accomplices escape justice. Meanwhile, I was drowning in legal meetings, damage control sessions with our PR team, and desperate conversations with investors who were threatening to pull their funding. Some days I'd find myself crying in my car in the parking garage, wondering if we'd ever recover from this. But then something unexpected started happening. A few of our longest-standing employees began reaching out privately, saying they didn't believe Marcus could have done what he was accused of. They remembered all the times he'd taken pay cuts during tough periods to make sure everyone else got their full salaries. They talked about how he'd always been the first to volunteer for charity drives and had personally helped several team members through financial difficulties. One evening, our head of marketing came to my office and closed the door behind her. She told me she'd been thinking about the timeline Marcus had mentioned in his confession, and some things didn't add up. She'd been with the company for 8 years and had access to a lot of financial records through her budget planning work. The periods when Marcus claimed to have been stealing money were actually some of our most transparent financial quarters. I had to be very careful about what I said, but I could see the doubt growing in people's minds. It gave me the first spark of hope I'd felt since that terrible night. Then came the phone call that changed everything. A reporter from a major newspaper had been digging into our accountant's background and discovered some irregularities in his previous employment. Apparently, there had been similar financial discrepancies at his last 2 companies, but no charges had ever been filed. The reporter wanted to know if we'd done thorough background checks before hiring him. I realized that Marcus's plan might actually work. If enough questions were raised about the accountant's history, it would make the eventual revelation of his guilt more believable and help restore our company's reputation. Update 2. 3 weeks after the anniversary party disaster, I got a call at 5 in the morning from a number I didn't recognize. It was Marcus, and he sounded exhausted but relieved. The FBI had finally gotten everything they needed. The accountant had been formally charged with embezzlement, fraud, and money laundering. But more importantly, they'd uncovered a whole network of financial crimes involving several other companies in our industry. The accountant hadn't been working alone. He was part of a sophisticated scheme that targeted growing tech companies, using insider knowledge to systematically drain funds while making it look like normal business expenses or partner payouts. They'd apparently been at it for years, and our company was just one of many victims. Within hours of the arrest becoming public, everything started to shift. The FBI held a press conference explaining the real situation, clearing Marcus's name and revealing the elaborate sting operation. The media coverage completely flipped from treating us as corporate villains to portraying us as heroes who'd helped expose major financial crimes. But the damage to our company was still severe. Even though Marcus was cleared, we'd lost significant business and several talented employees during those 3 terrible weeks. Our stock price started recovering, but slowly. Trust, once broken, doesn't repair overnight. The hardest part for me personally was dealing with the emotional aftermath. I'd experienced every possible feeling during those weeks: betrayal, anger, fear, confusion, hope, and relief, sometimes all in the same day. I'd learned that the person I trusted most in the world had been keeping massive secrets from me, even if it was for a good reason. Marcus and I had long conversations about what had happened. He'd been approached by federal agents months earlier when they first identified our accountant as a suspect. They'd needed someone on the inside to help gather evidence, and Marcus had agreed to cooperate. But the emotional toll of lying to me, to our employees, to everyone we cared about, had been crushing for him. He'd wanted to tell me the truth so many times, but the agents had insisted that the fewer people who knew, the better. They'd needed his reaction at the party to look completely genuine, which meant I had to be genuinely shocked and devastated. I understood his reasoning, but I still felt hurt that he'd made such a massive decision without including me. We were supposed to be partners in everything, and he'd carried this burden alone for months while I remained completely oblivious. The revelation also made me question everything I thought I knew about our business. How many other things had I missed? How had I never noticed the signs that our accountant was stealing from us? I'd always prided myself on being detail-oriented and hands-on, but apparently I'd been completely blind to what was happening right under my nose. Recovery was slow and painful. We had to rebuild relationships with clients who'd dropped us, convince talented people to come back or join our team, and restore confidence among our investors. Some bridges had been burned permanently, but others proved to be stronger than we'd expected. The most surprising outcome was how the experience brought our core team closer together. The employees who'd stuck with us through the crisis became incredibly loyal and dedicated. They'd seen the company at its lowest point and chosen to stay anyway. There was a new sense of solidarity and shared purpose that hadn't existed before. Final update. It's been 6 months since that nightmare anniversary party, and I'm finally ready to share how everything turned out. The legal proceedings wrapped up last month. The accountant and his accomplices were sentenced to significant prison time, and we recovered most of the stolen money through asset seizures and insurance claims. The FBI commended Marcus for his cooperation and bravery in helping expose the crime ring. Our company not only survived but actually grew stronger. The media attention once the truth came out led to several new client inquiries from businesses who wanted to work with a company that had demonstrated such integrity. Our employee retention rate increased dramatically as people realized they were working for leaders who would go to extraordinary lengths to protect the business and their jobs. Marcus and I spent months in counseling, not therapy, but working with a business mediator to rebuild our professional relationship and trust. We established new protocols for communication and decision-making to prevent either of us from carrying such heavy burdens alone again. The experience taught me that sometimes the people we trust most will make decisions that hurt us in the short term but protect us in the long run. Marcus's choice to participate in the sting operation probably saved our company from years of ongoing financial losses and eventually complete collapse. But I also learned that transparency and communication are more important than I'd ever realized. We now have monthly partnership meetings where we discuss not just business operations but also any concerns, pressures, or unusual situations either of us is facing. The anniversary party has become something of a legend in our office. New employees hear about it during orientation, and it serves as a reminder that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best outcomes. We joke that we should plan something equally dramatic for our next milestone celebration, though I think once was enough for several lifetimes. Looking back, I realized that night tested everything I thought I knew about business, friendship, loyalty, and trust. It forced me to confront my own limitations and blind spots while also showing me how resilient both our company and my relationship with Marcus could be. The accountant's betrayal hurt, but it was impersonal. He saw us as marks, nothing more. Marcus's deception, even though it was ultimately protective, hurt on a much deeper level because it came from someone I considered family. But working through that pain and rebuilding our trust created something stronger than what we'd had before. Our company is thriving now in ways I never expected. We've expanded into new markets, hired incredible talent, and built a reputation for integrity that sets us apart from competitors. The employees who stayed with us through the crisis have been promoted and rewarded for their loyalty. The investors who stuck with us have seen significant returns. Most importantly, Marcus and I have learned to be better partners to each other. We still argue about strategy and decisions, but we do it with complete honesty and trust. We've proven to ourselves and everyone around us that our partnership can survive almost anything. Sometimes I still wake up thinking about that terrible moment when I thought my best friend and business partner had betrayed everything we'd built together. But then I remember how it felt when I learned the truth, not just relief, but a profound appreciation for someone who'd been willing to sacrifice his reputation and put himself at risk to protect what we'd created together. The anniversary party disaster became the foundation for everything good that followed. It's funny how life works sometimes. The moment you think everything is falling apart might actually be the moment everything finally falls into place.